who's actually going to get the most out of a rack mount UPS like the Tripp-Lite SMART1500RM2U? If you're running a handful of servers, a home lab, or a dedicated media rack and you're trying to decide whether to spend a couple of $100 on a unit that promises 1500VA, this is the question that keeps most buyers up at night. On the other hand, if you just need a little plug-in surge protector for your desk, you'll probably be better off with something far cheaper. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first started looking at UPS options for my small office, I kept getting hit with the same two worries. Will the unit actually keep my gear alive during a brownout, and will it fit into the limited rack space I have? The SMART1500RM2U markets itself as a SmartPro solution that talks to your network and can be managed remotely, which sounds great on paper but can feel like a gimmick if the software never talks to the devices you actually use. The real test is how it behaves when the power flickers during a storm, and whether the extra features justify the price tag for a typical everyday buyer. Let's start with the core use case. Imagine you have a 2U rack holding a couple of NAS drives, a low-end firewall, and maybe a small UPS-powered PO switch for a few IP cameras. You plug those three pieces into the SMART1500RM2U, and you set the software to shut down the NAS gracefully if the battery runs low. In my own lab, a similar setup survived a 10-second outage without any data loss, because the UPS gave the NAS enough time to write its caches and spin down safely. That's the kind of peace of mind the unit is designed to provide, and it's a tangible benefit you can actually notice when the lights go out. Now, the biggest curveball with this model is that it ships without any batteries. The NO batteries note in the spec sheet isn't a typo. You have to buy a separate Tripp-Lite battery pack and install it yourself. For a lot of people, that feels like an unnecessary extra step, especially if you were expecting a plug-and-play solution. On the upside, buying the batteries separately lets you choose the capacity you need, whether you want a few minutes of runtime for a router or a longer window for a server that needs to finish a write operation. The trade-off is you'll need to factor that additional cost into your budget, and you have to make sure the battery you pick is compatible with the UPS's internal connectors. If you're the type of buyer who prefers a single-box solution, this might be a deal-breaker. But if you're comfortable ordering the battery later, you actually gain flexibility. The battery is a replaceable component, which means when it finally degrades after a few years, you can swap it out without scrapping the whole unit. That longevity can stretch the effective lifespan of the UPS well beyond the average 3-year turnover you see with many consumer models. From a physical standpoint, the 2U form factor is exactly what most small rack setups need. It slides in cleanly between other equipment, and the front panel LCD gives you a quick glance at load, battery status, and any alarms. I've seen a few users try to mount the unit in a wall-mounted enclosure and run into issues because the built-in mounting brackets assume a standard rack. If you're planning a non-standard installation, double-check the dimensions and be ready to fabricate a small bracket or two. One practical strength that often goes unnoticed is the automatic voltage regulation, AVR. In areas with frequent brownouts or overvoltage spikes, the AVR steps in to smooth out the input before it reaches your devices. That means you can keep sensitive networking gear running without constantly worrying about voltage spikes frying a component. In my own experience, the AVR saved a cheap PO switch from shutting down during a brief 110-volt dip, something a basic surge strip would never have handled. On the flip side, the unit's runtime at full load is modest. With the standard 1500VA rating, you're looking at roughly 5 minutes of backup if you push the UPS to its limit. That's fine for a graceful shutdown, but not enough if you need to keep a server online during an extended outage. If your workload includes critical applications that must stay up for longer periods, you'll either need a higher capacity UPS or stack this one with an external battery bank, both of which add cost and complexity. Another nuance is the SmartPro management software. It's fairly robust. You can set thresholds, schedule automatic shutdowns, and even receive email alerts when the battery is low. However, the interface can be a little clunky the first time you open it, and you'll need to make sure the UPS is connected via the supplied USB or network cable for full functionality. Users who are comfortable with a little configuration will appreciate the granular control. Those who want a simple plug-it-in-and-forget-it experience might find the learning curve a bit steep.